Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host, Mohammed Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co-author of New Success Secrets available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Chrysta Bairre. Chrysta is an author of Beautiful Badass and a keynote speaker. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Chrysta Bairre. Chrysta, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you so much. And let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, my story really starts in childhood, although I promise I'll keep this short. But I grew up in the Denver area primarily and lived in poverty. My family was on welfare. There was a lot of mental illness prevalent in my family. And it really started me at a very young age of having to go outside the system to get my needs met, to find and create opportunities for myself. And I did a pretty good job doing that throughout my professional career. But at some point about my mid-30s, I really started to have a lot of toxic stress in my life and health issues that inspired me to start writing a work-life balance blog. I realized I needed to make some significant changes in my life, and writing a blog weekly about everything I was trying seemed like a great way to really learn and implement as I was learning and turn things around. My blog turned into a business, and even though I'd been writing a blog for about 10 years, I had so many people asking me, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And every time I got asked that question, I thought to myself, write a book? I don't want to write a book. Until the day that I realized I actually did want to write a book. And so I did write this book. It's called Beautiful Badass, How to Believe in Yourself Against the Odds. And it tells my story of how I grew up and shares some of the tools and ideas that I used. That led to me doing a lot of speaking as well. And that brought me to here. But my inspiration was very much around creating a better life for myself. And I've done that at multiple levels throughout my life.
What are the top 3 reasons why people fail?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out there. What was the question?
It's on your screen right now. What are the top 3 reasons why people fail?
The top 3 reasons that people fail, I think, first of all, is they try to avoid making mistakes. I say make those mistakes and fail fast, because done is better than perfect. The second one is waiting until you feel ready or you feel like you have everything in order. I'm a big believer in making it scrappy, not crappy in business. It just starts with getting started. And believing what other people think more than you believe in yourself. And this is really a key one, I think, is it's really important to believe in yourself more than you believe in other people's opinions.
What is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
So I quit my corporate job with the intention of starting a business, but I was a little scared, right? I think a lot of us have been there. So I got a part-time job. And when I say part-time, I was still working about 25 to 30 hours a week. So not really that part-time. But really, I just didn't get going for several years. And my biggest failure story, if you want to call it that, was getting fired from one of these jobs. I got fired. I was 40 years old, got fired from my job. And I realized it was my moment to either really commit myself to starting my business or to just go back to corporate life completely. So, what I learned is to just get started, to not try to put it off until you feel like you're ready, like I said before, and just go for it.
How did you recover from it?
I recovered one step at a time, just like everything else in life. It was just like, what's the next step? Let me do that. What's the next step? Let me do that. That's one of the ways that I avoid overwhelm. And one of the ways that I keep myself engaged and motivated is just doing the next right thing and the next right thing after that.
What are your top 3 success secrets that others can model from?
So, number one, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here, but I feel this is so important. Stop waiting and do the thing. Whatever that thing is that you're being called to do, just go out and do it. Number two is to do less and not more. A lot of us think that in order to reach our goals, we have to do more or be more. And I promise you that you do enough and you are enough. And one thing that I like to do for myself, and I tell other people as well, is to cross one thing off your list every day without doing it. Because I promise you, you're putting things on your list that are just not absolutely necessary. And the third thing is to find or build your community. Being an entrepreneur can be lonely, it can be intimidating, and having a community around you of people going through similar things, people you can bounce ideas off of, is so important. And for me, as an introvert, I really struggled to find the right community for me. A lot of traditional networking groups I could manage, but I didn't really thrive in them. So I actually started my own group, a women's leadership community that's introvert focused. So if you can't find your community, then build it.
What motivates you within?
What motivates me from within is thinking about the young woman, the young girl that I used to be, who was living in poverty, the young woman who wanted so desperately to have a better life, and decided when I was 8 years old, this is a story I wrote about in my book, I made the decision to create a better life for myself. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. It didn't really matter how. So often we get stuck on the how. What mattered is just that I made the decision to create a better life for myself. And I started taking steps forward one at a time. And I learned the how as I went along.
What is your company's motto?
My company's motto is, I already said it before, you do enough and you are enough.
Who is your ideal client?
My ideal client is primarily women who really want to step more into their potential. It is hard, so hard for women to show up and really take up our space fully in the world. So much of the time we've been told to be quiet and compliant. We've told what our place is. And that sometimes keeps us from really stepping into our full potential, or we feel like in order to be successful that we have to be something that we're not, something other than who we truly are. But we all have amazing gifts to bring into this world. And I think that sharing those gifts really comes from being ourselves.
How do you find your ideal client?
For me, it's primarily through speaking. I do a lot of speaking in front of live audiences as well as podcasts like this. I speak about 2 to 3 times a month, and that is primarily where I find my ideal client.
How do you engage your ideal client?
I engage my ideal client not through chasing them down or trying to serve them, but by being available to them. I mean, it starts with me leading by example. A lot of my clients are women very much like me, further back in their journey. And they are inspired by the things that I'm doing and how I'm showing up. And then I serve them primarily through my women's leadership group, as well as through speaking from stages. And then my book allows me to reach a much wider audience.
What are your well-defined products or services?
So as I said, I've got my book, Beautiful Badass, How to Believe in Yourself Against the Odds. This is really a entry point for almost anyone, low cost and available easily. And then I have my keynote speaking that I do to audiences from 30 to over 300 all over the country. In addition to that, I have a women's leadership group called She Goes High. We are currently in person and primarily located in northern Colorado, but we are looking to expand over time.
Why someone should buy from you?
This is a great question because I don't know that someone should buy from me. I want anyone who engages with me in any way to buy because it serves them, because it helps them achieve a goal that they have, because it inspires them and supports them. So really, the reason that someone should buy from me is to support themselves.
Why do you, I apologize, how do you crush your competition?
Well, this is an interesting question. I don't think of myself as being very competitive, but I can tell you that embracing my unique strengths and my unique challenges is one way that I set myself apart from the competition. For example, with my women's leadership group, we are introvert focused. In my experience, that's pretty unusual in the networking realm, and that allows us to really reach a totally different audience in a totally different way. In the other services I provide, I would say it's really through my unique past and history. For example, the fact that I grew up in poverty. And one thing that I just really irritates me in the personal development world and even the professional development world is that I feel like a lot of the advice that's being given from the front of the room is being done by people with a very high level of privilege. And they're not really aware of how their level of privilege impacts the advice that they're giving. So I can really come from a place of saying, hey, not all of us have the same level of privilege. And we can do more with what we have when we can acknowledge where we're starting from, knowing our starting place, and starting from there. And so that's definitely a unique aspect that I feel that I bring to the table as well, is to say, hey, you've got to start from where you're at. And it's okay if you're not at the same level as someone else. It's okay if you don't have the same privilege that someone else has. It doesn't mean that you can't create amazing and wonderful things in your life and in your business, but you've got to start where you are right now.
How do you deliver a 5-star client experience?
As far as a 5-star client experience, I really create that or co-create that with my clients. It's about understanding who my clients are and what their needs are and working with them starting from where they are.
How do you use your sales proposals to close more deals?
So when I am in a conversation with someone about my keynote speaking, about my book, or even about my women's leadership group, She Goes High, it really becomes about understanding the problem that that potential client is experiencing and whether or not I have the solution. I'm absolutely 100% okay with people saying no to me, especially if it's not going to serve them. I'm not looking to take their money if they're not going to get a good result from it. So I think it really starts from understanding where that potential client is coming from and understanding if a solution that I have to offer is the right solution for them. And if it is the right solution, I offer it. And if it's not the right solution, I honestly will give them another option, refer them to someone else because I'm not always the best person to serve them.
How do you convert your clients into your brand ambassadors?
As far as converting clients into brand ambassadors, again, this is an interesting question because I don't feel like I do this really in very direct ways. I do it mostly by being myself and leading by example. And that's exactly my brand. And that's what I want my clients to do as well. So it really starts with my own journey and focusing on, am I living what I'm teaching? Am I being what I'm teaching? And if not, how can I do that better? I get lots of feedback from clients that I've impacted them in ways that I didn't even realize I was impacting them. And oftentimes it's by modeling the things that I teach myself.
How do you handle an angry client?
When there's an angry or unsatisfied client, I think the really important first step is simply to acknowledge the emotions that they're experiencing, and they are valid. I don't try to justify or convince them that they shouldn't be upset or shouldn't be angry because that's really invalidating, and I don't think that that serves anyone. So first and foremost, I think it's about acknowledging that person and meeting them where they're at and understanding their anger. And also, an interesting thing that I have learned through the years, and this is really important, is that even though it is my job to serve my clients, I'm not responsible 100% for the experience that they have. And so I have learned that I have to also detach myself from that experience and allow them to have whatever experience they're going to have, because I know that I offer a great service. And sometimes people just aren't in a place to fully receive the full benefits of that service. And I need to allow that to be okay, even if they are unhappy, and not feel like I have to somehow make them happy, because honestly, people decide to be satisfied with a product or service. If you're offering a great product or service, they decide whether or not they're going to be satisfied with it.
Okay, we are about to move into lightning round. That means quick question and quick answer. Are you ready?
Yes, ready.
What are you grateful for today?
Today, I am grateful for the beautiful Colorado sunshine and warm weather.
How do you start your day?
I start my day first and foremost by making the bed. I get dressed and ready for the day. I eat breakfast and I do a movement meditation every morning.
How young are you?
I am 46 years young.
You are not 46. You are 18 years old with 28 years of experience. What you want to do when you grow up?
I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. And over the next 5 to 10 years, I want to continue to write and put out book number 3 and book number 4 and beyond. And I want to speak on bigger and bigger stages so that I can impact more lives and inspire more people to step fully into their purpose and to shine their light more brightly in the world.
What is your plan to achieve your goal?
Well, I'm very goal oriented, as I have been since I was a young girl. So I create quarterly goals for myself. I have an accountability partner and I check in on those regularly. So that's kind of the how I do it, is by staying focused on what's important to me in my business. And the bigger picture part of that is really going to be sitting down, writing the next book and the book after that, and the book after that, continuing to do things like these podcast interviews, continuing to put myself out there, even when it feels super vulnerable and hard, which it feels that way a lot of the time. But it's just one foot in front of the other, doing the work day in and day out.
How will you feel in case you don't achieve your goal?
Well, in many ways, I feel like I've already achieved all of the goals that I've set for myself from when I was a young girl and I decided to create a better life for myself. And so I really just assume that I will achieve my goal. And I think that there might be bumps along the road. It might not look exactly the way I think that it will. It might take more time than I think it's going to take, but I actually am going to achieve that goal.
How do you overcome a challenge life throws at you?
Boy, life has thrown a lot of challenges at me over the last few years, and I think all of us in the year 2020. And it really goes back to what I said before. Just do the next right thing. What's the next step and the step after that? And just take one of them at a time.
What is the advice you will give to a younger yourself?
The advice I would give to my younger self is to receive more. That's one thing. And I did a great job of pulling myself out of the poverty that I grew up in, of really changing a lot of things in my life. But I did it alone. I really did it through a lot of self-effort and hard work. And I burned myself out multiple times over in that process. So the advice I would give to my younger self is receive more help from the outside, ask for more help from the outside in this process, even when it feels scary, even when it feels a little bit unsafe, to receive, receive, receive.
Once you have a revenue generating idea, how do you convince your significant other?
This is a great question. And here's the thing. Uh, I may not be right all of the time, but my partner and I, we have a joke that I'm right about 90% of the time. So actually, when I come up with a new idea, he's almost always on board with it because he knows that I have a history of good ideas and executing those ideas. So I never really have to convince him as much as just share that inspired idea that I have.
Why being impactful is important to you?
I grew up in a very difficult situation and had a really hard life as a child. And why it's important for me to be impactful is because I want to help as many people who either had a similar background as I did or people who are yet to experience really significant hardship. I want to leave the world a better place than I came into it, and I want to help as many people as I can in that process.
Who is your living mentor and what's the impact?
My living mentor is that 8-year-old girl that I was when I made that decision to create a better life for myself. I didn't know how, but I just knew that I was going to do it. And I think back to her often, and I look back at all the incredible things and the hard things that she's done. And you know what? Every time I think of that 8-year-old version of me, I feel re-inspired. I find renewed belief in myself, and it keeps me moving forward.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for inspiring many people who struggled with things similar to the things that I struggled with, to believe in themselves against the odds, to overcome being underprivileged, to find and create their own path in this world instead of feeling like they have to be something that they're not to be successful.
How can we support you?
Thank you for asking this question. I would love for you to go to my website, liveandlovework.com, and there you can find more about my keynote speaking. You can find my book. You can also find more about my women's leadership organization, She Goes High.
We are about to wrap up. I'd like to have your few words about your today's guest experience on the show. Here's my question. What would you say about your today's guest experience on the show?
I thought this was a really great experience. I've been on quite a few podcasts, and one thing that I loved about this is I loved how thorough it was. There was so much information about how to prepare and videos that you sent and everything, so that I felt really confident going into this experience. It was really great. Thank you so much for having me.
What would you say as a final word?
My final words to all of your listeners and everyone who is watching is you do enough and you are enough. And I just want to remind you that there is nothing more you need to do or nothing more you need to be to change the world, to make a movement with your business, to create the impact that you want to create. Just keep doing what you're already doing.
Thank you so much, Chrysta, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.